stupid, that I was bodo, that I was not smart. So my wife has passed me this. It's already been added. It's already been added. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting all kinds of messages here. So, although I was in the Malaysian education system, I was told that I was not very smart, but I turned out okay. Now, here's the thing. Education has changed over the years, and to a certain extent, the education that we are receiving is still in archaic. Still in archaic mode. Can you see that hand over there? That's my wife's hand. She's waving. So sweet. Ele, 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 ele. So sweet. The system failed you and many others. Guys, chill, chill. Wow, we're getting so many comments already. I'm an Ijazah Sarjana Muda Engineering MEC East UITM student, and I quit my job because I hate it after 10 years. Muhammad Fahmi, chill. Wow, the conversation is lit. You guys are ready to jump in on this, are you not? So we're going to be talking about education, and we're going to be talking about what is education, and is the current education system apt? Is it adapting? Do we need to adapt to the education system? Does the education system give us what we need, what we want, what will help us survive in the real world? Wow, you guys, I was not expecting this, but thank you so much for all your comments. Keep those comments coming, because I'm going to bring on my very special guest right now, ladies and gentlemen, because this gentleman actually is in the education line, and he knows a lot more about the education line than I do. I'm just Bodo art student, but I have my opinions, I have my point of view, and I guess that you guys have your point of view as well. Johan Asteman would say Bodoism rocks. I have no idea what you mean, Johan, but it's funny. Okay, guys. Here's the gentleman that I would like to introduce to you. Let me give you a little bit of background in history. This gentleman was actually instrumental in starting up and helping out the Help Educational Group for 20 years. He's also a psychologist. He has had decades of experience in the world of education. And in getting to know him over the last couple of days, I think we are on similar wavelengths, because I have also recently found out he was not a great student as well, but he's got some incredible views on education. And I'm now a parent myself, and I have kids, and I'm kind of worried about them as well. So without further ado, I'd like to bring my special guest onto the show. Please, wherever you are, welcome him, put your hands together, shout whoop into your phone or whatever, from Dr. Go Chi Leong from Real Schools. Welcome to the show, Dr. Go.
Hi, Harif. Thank you so much for having me, and welcome everybody. I can see some of my former students and parents are already sort of on your chat line as well. So hi everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, you've already got, you can see in the chat section some of your former and parents. I hope they have some nice things to say about you. You wouldn't want to jumping in straight away. So Dr. Go, let's just jump straight into this. As I was explaining earlier to the viewers here on the Facebook Live, in school I was considered Bodo. I was in the art stream. In fact, we were streamed after Form 3, you go into Form 4, right? And then you were streamed. And there was a science stream and there was art stream. I was streamed into the art stream, and the art stream was considered the Bodo, the stupid, not so good students, and I was in there. Actually, I was put into the science stream, for your information. I kind of snuck into the science stream, but my mother, bless her heart, she was smart. She said, I'm going to be dying in the science stream because I was really bad at science. So she went to the school and pushed me into the art stream, at which point the headmaster said to her, why are you putting him in the art stream? That's where all the stupid students are. And my mother said, never mind, he's going to be the smartest of the stupid students. So, true story. My mother was ahead of her time. So I went through an education system which told me I was stupid, Bodo, because my grades at best were C6, C7, P7, P8, etc., etc. But I knew I was not stupid. So, that's a long time ago. We've moved on. We've gone on. We move forward. I'm doing what I'm doing right now. You've been in the education line for decades now. And early on, you also told me that you were in the government school. What school did you go to?
So I was in the rival school, Harif. I was in MBS KL, across the other hill.
Oh,
So St.
oh,
John's MBS KL.
you like the gangster school.
Exactly, man. With
You
VI,
like
we were with VI. I think we were used to call it Peperangan Tiga Segi, the three boys
yeah.
schools, But look, so
I,
I was in social science, by the way. So I wasn't in science either, And I remember, I mean, the stigma in those days was exactly if you were a smart student, go to science, everybody else were all over the place. And of course, all of us used to joke that in the end of the day, after many years, the science students end up working for the art and the social science students, So
no, but so here's the thing. First of all, MBS, we used to call you Monkey Boy School.
exactly,
But here's
I
the thing.
remember
When I look back on my school friends, those of us who were not doing that well, in art stream or a bit naughty and jahat, these guys are all highly successful today. Whereas
Entrepreneur. Yeah.
striking the 9 A's and 10 A's back in the day some of them are doing okay, but not as well as some of the guys who were completely failing in school. Now, is that a failure of, I don't know, were we failing in school? And if so, how is it that those who failed in school turned out okay in the real world?
And I think, look, the stories all of us have, when we look back at our gang, and we're thinking about all of these kids that we used to grow up with in our class and how they've turned out. I think it's a reflection of the fact that often school is not an accurate reflection of the real world. Exactly. And how we are grading students, how we are evaluating students, how we are grouping students, sometimes bears no reflection at all about the kind of skills, competencies, motivations that actually, make somebody street smart. So often, I think nowadays parents are realizing, you want your kid to succeed. Look, nothing wrong against being book smart. So I think you and I, we're sort of not anti-knowledge or anti-studying or anything like that. But what we're saying is that that's not everything, isn't it? You don't put all of the eggs into that basket, because book smart without street smart, which I think is what you're referring to, that doesn't amount to a lot either. And a lot of our friends who were street smart, these are the ones that have actually, they're thriving and, surviving the real world.
So so how come? Maybe they are doing it. Maybe I don't know what they're doing now. How come in school they're not teaching this? Like, guys, it's not all about getting the 9 A's, because I mean, traditionally Asian parents, you got to do well in school, you got to get best marks, you got to be number 1, number 2 in school. I don't know whether that is still a thing. It was definitely a thing when I was in school.
Sure.
But in school, no one ever said to me, you got to be street smart. Although now I must admit, that's how I'm talking to my kids. I'm like, you're exactly right. I'm not anti-education. Learn your ABCs, learn your timetables, learn your facts. But at the same time, you got to know how to hustle. That's how I'm trying to hopefully teach my kids. How is that incorporated in schools at any level? I kind of lost touch with
not enough, Harif. I think not nearly enough. And I think just looking at the comments that are coming through the Facebook pages, I think most parents also agree with the fact that, look, I think education systems around the world, so I mean, it's not just in Malaysia, it's around the world. I think they suffer from the fact that they are still educating people, firstly, in a very academic way, so very, very narrow way. I think number 2, they're still sort of stuck in the 1980s and 90s. We always joke that as teachers and educators, sometimes we are preparing students for sort of our adulthood. So when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s, going to university or starting work, those are our frame of reference. And I think as educators worldwide, this is sort of the most common mistake, that when we think of what a school should be or what a university should be, our frame of reference is still stuck 20, 30 years ago. So I think that there really is a need, not just in Malaysia, but worldwide, to sort of connect a bit better with the reality of the real world. And that's something that, I've been doing. So 25 years I've been in education. Previously I was in psychology. And then, over the last 5-6 years, I started moving to schools and applying, my developmental and cognitive psychology to seeing whether we could actually do a better job creating a school that engages more children. I mean, I think what you were saying earlier basically is the idea that, in the old days, in fact, actually even now, a lot of schools, they only engage with, a certain group of students. And the majority of students, they don't like school, they don't enjoy school, they hate school, they feel as though they are losers, they are failures, they feel as though they are the dumb kids. And I think then there's something wrong with the whole model when the majority of students feel that way. So one of the other things I think we need to be doing, and that's something that we are doing in real schools, is we need to then preach a different message, which is, hey, look, different strokes for different folks. Like, the fact that the world needs people with different talents. So whether it's comedians, actors, musicians, people in art, which by the way is becoming hugely in vogue now. I mean, I think the comedians and the artists are the most important people keeping us alive during this MCO. We need the scientists, we need the engineers, we need the builders, we need the teachers, we need the educators, the psychologists, the IT people. And I think if that message comes across to our students and our children, to say, look, there's nothing weird or wrong about you. It's just that all of you have different talents. So stop comparing yourself, to the kid next door who may be smarter than you or faster than you, who can play football better than you. And mean that don't feel as though you're so behind, but find your talents, because they're going to be things you do better than others. And so to me, that's actually number one job of the school. If you're preparing children for the real world needs more than one kind of graduate, you see. The real world needs a variety of different people. All of us, when you look at our stories, all of us had different pathways in life. So how do you celebrate that in school and reaffirm and give more kids confidence so that they don't end up, maybe in the wrong job, wrong career, that kind of thing?
Exactly. So just jumping off from what you were talking about, that's exactly true. Growing up in school, what do you want to be? Cikgu, saya nak jadi police, engineer, doctor. But as you pointed out, like when I was in school, if I had put up my hand and said, I want to be a stand-up comedian, teacher would be like, one tight slap, I go flying across the room. But let me bring up a quote here that you've got here, that where you pointed this out. 65% of jobs that kids will be doing in the future don't yet exist in the world today. So 65% of jobs that kids will be doing in the future don't yet exist in the world today. That is a huge statement. That is a huge statement to make. Now let's go back a little bit. Now in 2020, okay, when I was in school before 1983, the job of a stand-up comedian did not exist, and yet here I am, 30 years later, as a stand-up comedian. So that statement, if you said to me 30 years ago, would stand true. Now, let's put ourselves in today. What does that statement mean today in 2021? Like what jobs don't exist?
So I think it challenges in a few ways. And as a parent or as an educator, it means the following things. Number one, we need to grasp and accept the fact that we can't predict the future beyond the next 5-10 years. And I think that's what that statement means. Meaning the old days in the 70s, 80s, where the job market was pretty stable, and like you say, people could say, okay, look, what do you want to be? At 12 years old, 18 years old, kids could sort of pick one lane in their life, one career, and pretty much, do that career until they die, And that was the understanding. In fact, in those days, you pick one company. You used to be a company man, the same company until you die. Right? And I think we realized from the 70s, 80s to now, the world has become a lot more volatile, right? Which means that the job market is changing, companies are changing. So I think that's number one, that rather than therefore say, okay, I want my child to be an engineer, I want my student to be a doctor. So the whole of school is just preparing them with very, very specific skill sets to be a doctor. That doesn't work anymore, because as your stats, you quoted has said, we don't know what the jobs are going to be. So if they don't exist right now, so whether they're tech jobs or AI jobs or goodness knows what, I mean, we may all be living in Mars by then, all right, I mean, so it could be space jobs. We have no idea of knowing what it is. So as an educator, my job is not preparing a child for a specific job. My job is preparing my children and students with what we call timeless real world skills. Timeless meaning, whatever decade now, whether it's 2021 or 2025 or 2030, and in whatever profession they end up doing. So whether it's science or arts, whether it's performing arts or medicine, these skills, some people call it transferable skills, core skills. Now in real, we've used the word real world skills. These real world skills like psychological resilience, adaptability, just thinking skills, being able to use your otak, common sense, being able to solve problems in the real, communicate with people, work with anybody. You put me in any team, whether it's a difficult person, easy person, dogmatic people, you can work with anybody. Now, these are sebagai contoh, these are the examples of timeless transferable skills. So what we are saying is schools should focus on that. And you give these students, this next generation, these kind of skills. Hey, it doesn't matter what happens in the future. With the fourth industrial revolution, with what we call the VUCA world, so VUCA is something that the U.S. military used to use to express how difficult it is to prepare for the world. So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So VUCA. And now all business courses, you go to any MBA, they teach you about VUCA, right? And so we talk about to prepare our kids for this VUCA world. You give them this set of skill sets so that doesn't matter what happens and where they end up working in what profession, they're going to be all right and prepared. So I think that's the approach. So rather than specific professions, now we are telling kids, hey, look, prepare for anything that is coming your way.
Well, exactly. That's the reason I brought up what this gentleman, Patrick Koo, has said. Just like TV, which was program media, is being dropped by kids today in favor of YouTube, TikTok, Vimeo, education should be first to make the next generation firstly nimble. Kids and parents can choose what they want to study. Of course, the decision needs to be made knowing the job skills in demand. And secondly, the industry, kids, and even adults need to be taught how to be nimble. If the jobs are structurally eliminated, people have the prosperity to train themselves. So, for example, I've got an 8-year-old, my oldest son. When I ask him today what he wants to become, he says, YouTuber. I want to become a YouTuber. And I sit there and I go, yeah, sure. Why not? But
why not?
Now, I'm a parent, and when the word YouTuber,
sure,
that will just slide over all the non-existent hair on my head. But I cannot argue with it, because if you type in highest grossing or highest earning YouTubers, this kid Ryan who opens up toys, is, making in 29 million USD a year. Now, how do I argue with my 8-year-old? YouTubing is not a job. Hell, it's a job. It's exactly right now. Now, how do you incorporate that into an education system? 8-year-old kids are in school right now going, I want to become a YouTuber. There is no syllabus called YouTube, I think. St. John's, MBS. Are you? How does it work?
No, and so I would approach it like this, to tell your son, hey, no problem at all. And so to be a YouTuber, let's focus on what skills you need. Good communication skills, good networking, being able to have some basic technical IT skills. But then I think the challenge, Harif, to your son is to say, hey, by the way, though, by the time you finish, YouTube may not exist, by the way, So VUCA world, so now is YouTubing. YouTubing may be old-fashioned already, man, I mean, just like influencing, right? I mean, 2-3 years ago, everybody wanted to be an influencer. Now you're already hearing that the influencer market is already waning, meaning they're moving on to the next thing, So TikTok is taking over, for example, YouTube, So I think the approach educationists should have is to say, okay, let's not make the same mistake of then saying, okay, let's all have YouTube classes where we are preparing, thousands of kids in Malaysia all to be YouTubers. Firstly, number one, because how many Ryans are there in the world, right? Number two, because like I say, preparing them for YouTube is like us learning Lotus language 30 years ago in IT. Soon it's going to be redundant. So again, the focus is on timeless real-world skills. So it's not so much YouTube, but it's going to be communication skills, show business, entrepreneurship. The influencers and YouTubers, it's not just that they communicate well or that they actually, make themselves very attractive, connect with the audience, is that they see opportunities, they see opportunities of what information people want. Now, that's entrepreneurial skills, which is, by the way, one of our real world skills. It's not so much about the money yet. It's about understanding basic consumer psychology. What do people want to hear? What do people want to see? What information? Where are the gaps in the market? So whether it's helping people laugh, and get over their difficult lives for a while and escape for a while, whether it's providing them information, so even in the YouTube field, you see so many different needs there. So to me, teaching our students about, hey, understand the psychology, look at where the trends are, now then in the future, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or whatever platform that exists, I mean, who knows, in 10 years time it may be just microchips in your brain already, and maybe those are the influences. I mean, whatever happens in the future, then you've got the skills to move. I mean, I think Patrick's point is about the word agility, speed. The best entrepreneurs are people who move the quickest. Most of us see the ideas, about 5-6 years after it's already done. So most of us say, oh, I could have invited the iPad, but I mean, that's after Steve Jobs did it. I could have come up with a budget airlines after Tony Fernandez did it. But I think the agility of mind, now that's what we're trying to teach our younger generation to do, to keep spotting opportunities. So whatever the opportunity is, whether it's YouTube or something new, then your son Harif can be in the position to say, you know what, I'm going to be fluid like water. I'm going to be flexible, and I might do 5 or 6 different things in the next 20, 30 years. And each time something new comes along, I will be okay to adapt. And I think that's
So
what we want.
basically, I got to teach my son to be like Bruce Lee, fluid like water. He got to flow like water. So there's a reference that anyone who is underneath 38 years old is wondering, who the hell is Bruce Lee? But anyway.
Yes. No, Jeet Kune Do, I mean, Harif, so I mean, Jeet Kune Do was based on the fluidity of water, right? He talks about be like water.
Be like water. Exactly. So here's the thing, though. This blows my mind. I'm listening to you talk, and I'm wishing when I was in school, I had educationalists talking this way to me. But no, it was like, by the way, when I was in school, 50 was the pass mark, and you always had to aim for 80 plus and all. But now, like I hear, I don't know, maybe someone can confirm this to me, 35 is a pass mark sometimes. But here's the thing, all these concepts, all these ideas that you are talking about, how do you fit it into an education system which is at best semi-rigid, and how do you, as an educationalist at Real School, how do you bring it in, and how do you convince parents that this is something that may work or needs to work? I mean, it sounds like a huge undertaking to me.
I think that the key, Harif, has been demonstrating to parents. I mean, this is something we've been doing for many years now, and demonstrating to parents that in this particular instance, you can have your cake and eat it, which is say, we are saying, look, give your child all these real world skills, which we do, whether it's integration into the classes or whether it's enrichment programs that we have for all of our kids. And we are telling parents, look, your kid has still more than enough time to study, prepare, get whatever A's your kid can get, so their studies don't need to suffer just because they're spending time on sports, performing arts, design technology, doing 3D printing in our new labs, designing, apps design, as part of digital skills. We're saying, look, to parents, all of these things firstly are complementary. Learning computational and digital skills is going to help them in math. Design thinking, thinking skills is going to help them in science, communication skill is going to help them in their languages like Bahasa and Mandarin and English. So I think we've told parents, firstly, look, it's not an either or choice. You don't need to choose either book smart or street smart. We're saying, in fact, good education combines the two. And our teachers, I mean, I've got a lot of respect for our teachers at real schools because they've found so many creative ways, especially during the MCO last year, even though they're doing it online, to come up with exercises and projects and challenges every week for the kids that basically combine, for example, in a science lesson, things like street smartness as well as the book knowledge. So I think, it's a fallacy to say, look, your school has to be either one or the other. Either you get the straight A's, or either you have dumb kids that basically are street smart. And I think that's the wrong way to look at education. What we're saying is good education actually combines the two things. And again, we're not anti-studying because there are going to be some kids in the school who are the geeks, and nothing wrong with that. I mean, they are the 12, 13 A students, and we want to encourage that because they are going to be the Oxford, Cambridge students. But we're saying not everybody is going to be like that. And so it's about how we create an opportunity to find their passion and their interest, But look, I think the key is really getting our teachers to look at how they teach the subjects in a different way. And so, for example, one of the real world skills that I think many schools and universities really sometimes neglect is thinking skills. I've often said that at the end of school, the most important thing is not your high school diploma or piece of paper or report card. It's actually your mind. You think of it, the tool that you've been developing in 11, 12 years of being in school is actually your mind. It's sharpening the mind, right? Sharpening it, making it more powerful. It's like a computer that you're growing, 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 growing. So we say, look, thinking skills, very, very important. Now, therefore, to hone this, teachers have to stop spoon feeding, and parents have to stop sending their kids, to tuition teachers that spoon feed them, or parents have to stop doing the homework for the kids. Parents have to stop giving the kids the answers. All of us, educators and parents, have sort of to partner and say, take a step back, let the kids struggle through a math problem, let the kids struggle through an English essay, let the kid actually apply themselves, whatever challenge it is, and that's
Okay,
the way it actually learns. Yep.
you are hitting me right here, right now, because I got to admit, now in the last 9 months, my kids have been doing e-learning, and I've been that parent at the side of the room, like just off camera. My kid is there trying to answer a question, and I'm like giving the answer. I'm like, "Hey, 12, it's 12, it's 12."
3 times 3 is 9.
Yeah, it's 9, and my kid is, and then when my kid, she goes, good boy, and I'm like, yeah, but you're absolutely right. I've been squinting, and can I tell you the moment when I realized what I was doing? Because I'm talking about my younger kid who is 5 years old, Zidane. I was doing exactly that, and then I actually caught him in a moment where I felt within myself that he was not on par with the other students
Sure.
in class who were giving answers which he couldn't work out. And I actually said to him, like, how come your friends know the answer? And he turns to me and goes, because they've got someone beside them helping them. And I was like, damn, my son just got me. He could see
Bastard.
the error on the side of but you're right. Here's the thing, though. Sometimes you need to let your kid fail. You need
Yeah.
to let your kid
Yep.
take the fall, get it wrong, and from the wrong you can learn how to get better. Be like water, but it's tough as a parent because I grew up on you got to get the 9 A's or the 10 A's, and you got to get it right, and when you got it wrong, you got a tight slap or a cane, but you need to get it wrong, and how do you, as an educationalist, how do you not spoon feed? I'm just going to talk personally here. How do you not spoon feed?
So I would say, I think as teachers and parents, we need to think long term rather than short term. So I think what we say is, look, we're not saying they won't get 9, 10 A's, because bear in mind, there are a lot of 9, 10 A students that are independent thinkers, and I think the way to do it, therefore, is start in standard 1. So standard 1 to standard 6 and form 1, form 2, form 3, I mean, they're not taking SPM yet, When they are younger, that's the time where you pull off the scaffold slowly and get them to start thinking and make it a habit to think through things, work things out for themselves, and to me, so that we've got, I mean, before they're 17 years old, when they need to take SPM or IGCSEs, I mean, we've got a good 9, how many years, a good 7, 8, 9 years where we can give them the room to make mistakes, because it's not a major exam yet, isn't it? So I often tell parents, look, let's all be pragmatic. Look, I live in the real world, so I realize that, yes, of course, at some point, at exit, university exam results do actually have consequences. I mean, going to university have consequences. You're not going to get into a university with FFF grades, in your STPM or A level. So I understand that. But what I'm telling parents is, now your kid is 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. They are not taking A levels tomorrow yet. You've got, 10, 11 years. And so think long term. The long term view, therefore, is no pain, no gain now. And it means that it may get worse before it gets better. And that's why all of our real schools, we don't have class rankings. We don't have, first class, second class, third class, exactly what you're talking about. And the reason why we don't stream, in fact, we don't stream until they are forced to take, subjects in form 4, form 5. That's the only time where the students then have to decide, whether it's science or arts or combination. But before that, all of our real schools, we don't rank the classes. because that's the reason why parents are under pressure to spoon feed. You see, nobody wants their kid in the last class. So that's why the parents, get the tuition and do all of the stuff so that the kid is not really thinking for themselves. So I think once you remove the pressure from the kid and the parent early on, especially in primary school, and you say, look, now is the time where the kid should be pushed and stretched to think for themselves. And it's okay if they make mistakes, because that's what school is for. In fact, that's the only way to learn. Go and make mistakes, try different things out, and so I think that kind of culture, Harif, is really important, so that the parents don't stress out of their minds.
Okay.
And number two, kids also don't stress out to the point where then all that matters are the results rather than the process of learning, right? Which is actually the point of education. So that's why I come back to my analogy of it's the mind, right? The tool that you're sharpening in the 12 years is the mind. If that doesn't happen, it's really 12 years of wasted time. And so how to sharpen? You need to sharpen it by actually doing it. It can't be the parent and the teacher doing it for you. And that's why, I used to lecture in university for 20 years. That's why I tell you this story. I used to lecture in psychology, first year psychology class, and you get all of these students coming from all over the world and all over Malaysia. And these are 10A students. These are straight A students, scholarship students. Some of them couldn't even pass my first year psychology class. Why? Because for the first time in their life, no tuition teacher. I mean, where I got tuition, for Dr. Go's psychology class, no past year questions. There's no textbook workbook that has already digested, all these cheat notes, nothing. So when for the first time in their life, when everything is taken away from them, and the university professor is saying, well, look, you have to think, there's no other way out. You've got to read the text yourself. You've got to think yourself. You've got to solve the problem yourself. Tak boleh buat, man, So I think that's why I often tell parents, hey, look, I'm not anti-academic. I'm not saying that we don't want to help your child, have good results, but this is the way to do it. The way to do it is don't spoon feed. Choose a school that shares that philosophy of no shortcuts, which means that the parent and the teacher are going to allow the child to struggle a little bit. It's just like swimming, Harif, to use an analogy. How to swim if I always put the floats around your arm, and 30 years old also tak boleh, renang, right? So at some point, we're going to have to stretch you to let go, and you have to swim by yourself, right?
Yeah. So you kind of hit the nail on the head. I run some businesses now, and sometimes when we take in interns or new people to work, they come in and they've got their CV and they got all these A's, and they joined all this, the Interact Club, and they're all doing, they're everything on the paper is absolutely perfect. But when I throw a question at them, something, like, hey, so I'm your boss. I don't show up at work one day. I've got an important meeting at 9 o'clock. What do you do? And there's a blank look on their face because that question was not in the curriculum, and all that question involved was common sense. Something, like, okay, what do I do? How do I find someone? How do I locate them? How do I navigate the problem, the issue? But on paper, these students are perfect, inverted commas, but what's lacking is the ability to think outside what's on that paper, outside the box, so to speak. So I'm actually very glad I am on the same page as you in terms of letting our kids fail. Like, swimming, you need to let them drown. In fact,
not to death, right?
You need to let them gargle a little bit of water for them to know how this works. Okay. Sorry, not drown. I'm gonna get all the hate mail coming from everyone out there. No, so here's another. I want to bring up another slide. 90% of what we learn in school will not be applicable in the real world. Now, this is a huge statement that you come up with at real school. 90% of what we learn in school will not be applicable in the real world. Then why the hell are we learning about it in school? Duh.
Yeah, and I think that's why. And that's why, look, a good school focuses as much on skill development as it does on content. Now, in the old days, so let me explain the shift in paradigm that has happened over the last 25, 30 years. Because, look, I'm not here to hate on the 1970s and 80s. Because, look, I mean, to be honest, I've got a lot of respect for my teachers and, a lot of people who encourage us in MBS, KL, and St. John's and all of that. So, I mean, it's a different world. But look, back in the 80s, 90s, before the internet existed, the kid that was the smartest was the kid that had the most information in their head. And so content learning was the most important thing. The analogy was that, kids' brains were like empty cups, and the school's job is to fill the cup with water, all right, knowledge. And the more knowledge the school fills up means the more successful education is. Now, this is all pre-internet, because in those days, well, I mean, the more information you have, the more useful it is, right? Okay? But you see, now with the internet, the paradigm has changed completely. You want to know what the capital of Portugal is, you don't need to memorize it. I mean, basically, you just get an iPhone and it's there. So I would say now the role of school is to train the mind, not so much to be a cup that is absorbing all of this knowledge, and you're right, 90% of which are not relevant anyway, because by the time you learn it, the world has already moved along. But to train your mind to be a compass. So not a cup, but a compass. And in the internet age, where you've got billions of information that is freely available 24/7, I bet most of us who have been stuck at home during the MCO have realized just how much stuff there is on the internet that we never knew. And it's not just Netflix or YouTube, so many things. Yes. And so it's training our children's brain to be a compass, to find the right information, ask the right questions, connect the dots, see the patterns, distinguish between fake and real news, what is reliable information, not reliable. So to me, the role of the school today, that's the relevant skill. How do you train them to navigate this ocean of information, rather than how to get them to memorize 50,000 words or knowledge facts, most of which, like you say, are not going to be really helping them to be street smart. So I think there needs to be a change in paradigm. And again, I'm not blaming the people in the 80s, because who would have known, So they did their best in those days. But now we are saying, many schools and universities are still teaching like the cup method. It's still about memorizing information. It's still about how much you can memorize and spit it out in the exam. And I think as an educator who has been involved in university for 20 years and schools for the last 10 years, I'm saying it's not relevant anymore. It's archaic. We need to move to a model and tell our children that. Be upfront and say, children, this is the world you live in. The internet is an ocean. You need to find your way around it. If not, you're going to get swamped and lost. And it's going to be useless because you can't find the information. I mean, Li Ka-shing, of course, who used to be one of the richest men in Hong Kong, right? I mean, Li Ka-shing was the famous CEO. He used to be known as the philosopher CEO, Li Ka-shing. And I remember this quote. This was actually about maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And he says, in this age of information, the most important skill that CEOs or leaders have is the skill of synthesis. Synthesis is being able to put together information from economics, from demographics, from politics, from stuff you're reading on the internet, and you put all of that information together. And for most people, they just see random information. But for an entrepreneur, they connect the dots, and then they come up with Alibaba like Jack Ma. They come up with a budget airline like Tony Fernandez. They come up with something that all of us are sort of staring at it, but we don't see the gaps. We don't join the dots. Now, to me, that's a really good example, Harif, of now this is the stuff that schools need to be teaching a lot more of. Problem-based learning, where kids are having to, rather than being given a formula, kids given data, information, and a problem, and say, okay, go solve this real world problem, and go search, have the experience of struggling to understand where the information should be, what information should I use, what fields, is this an economic problem, is this a sejarah problem, is this a geography problem, So to me, the best exams should actually not even be by subject, Arif. And that's something that we are working on next, which is to actually have challenges we can have in our real schools, where to solve this problem, it's a combination of, you need your digital skills, the IT stuff we have taught you, some programming, you need maybe some of the stuff you learn in science, some of the stuff you learn in math, some of the stuff you learn when you were doing scouts, outdoor activities, and you put all of this stuff together and you solve the problem. So going back to you talking about your interns, that's what they don't have. Your interns, they are trained to answer questions per subject. And so when you give them a situation, they're going, what subject is this? This never came out in the past year question. I don't know how to deal with this. So I think, to me, that's the direction of education moving forward.
Okay, there was a question earlier on.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. So, what we're talking about here, and you yourself, we're basically talking about these concepts, these ideas, which a lot have been put into practice in many
Mm.
private and international schools,
Mm.
including schools like Real School. However, let's face it. Probably not many of these practices have put in as part of the system in terms at government schools. So there was a question early on, like, okay, not everyone can afford a private or international
Sure.
school. How can
Sure.
they, as a parent, uh,
Mm.
take this kind of what the ideas that you're sharing and inculcate that or incorporate that into the education of their own child? Sounds like a monumental task indeed. But yeah, it must be tough, seeing as how kids go to school Monday to Friday, and between 6 to 7 hours a day.
Mm.
How do you take that time that you can't send a kid to private school to put these kind of thoughts in your child? I mean, a difficult question, but can a
Sure.
parent do that just on their own?
Yeah. I think, look, it's not easy, but I've always got a lot of time for the idea that parents play as important a role in the child's education as the school. So it's not just, whether it's a private school or public school, it's not about just dumping them in a school and then saying, okay, look, the school looks after your education. Because as we know, I mean, you're only in school for about 6, 7 hours a day, I mean, so half the time the kid is actually at home, so whether it's weekends or weekdays. And I think as a parent, there is a lot of options, things we can do. Look, it's not easy, but it takes time and commitment. So I think, for example, like I said earlier, it's about then how you help your child, coach your child through working through the normal curriculum. So just taking whatever curriculum they're doing, whether it's the SPM curriculum or foreign curriculum, and as a parent saying, look, in this family we don't spoon feed, so it may be easier to just send you for tuition and get somebody to teach you how to do it. But you know what, as my son or daughter, I'm going to coach you, but Papa is not going to give you the formula. So I'm going to give you some tools, but I'm going to stretch you to think for yourself. I think that's number one. So as a parent, we have a big role in determining how the child engages with the curriculum, whether it's a private or a public school. And so if we, tell the child, look, I don't really care, by hook or by crook, get the results, which means even if you have to spoon feed and do it the easy way, I don't care, So I think as a parent, we have to take a step back and say, look, this is an opportunity for you to develop your mind, and to Papa and Mommy, that's a lot more important, or as important as the result itself. And I think lay it down. I think number two, I've often said to parents, never ever stop your child from developing interests beyond the school curriculum. So if your child comes and says, okay, I'm interested in, taking up, MMA fighting or fitness, I'm interested in dinosaurs, I'm interested in water features, I'm interested in, I mean, whatever it is, and kids have interests, right? Passions. I mean, that's the thing we know about young kids in particular. They come into this world naturally curious. One of my favorite words in education is intellectual curiosity. They've got this curiosity now. Many parents, we make the mistake by saying, no, please don't waste time. This is not coming out in the UPSR curriculum. Don't waste time. This is not coming out the exam. So, I mean, forget about it, right? Focus on your 8 subjects. So I think as a parent, don't do that. Whatever interest your child has, use that as the beginning point to develop all of these skills that I've been talking about for the last 1 hour. The intellectual curiosity, the research skills. So if they're interested in dinosaurs, now that's the starting point for at least those few months, where they can develop their communication skills, reading skills, because they're reading stuff, they're watching YouTubes on dinosaurs, they want to talk about dinosaurs with the parents. So that's communication skills. They want to come up with their own projects on dinosaurs, build their dinosaur park. Hey, what Jurassic Park? That's all fine, man. So as a parent, rather than, hey, don't go and waste my time with this nonsense, the parent should be encouraging and say, yeah, great, I want to see in Minecraft how you build a dinosaur park. Let's all watch it together, because that's creative. That's showing me that you are able to put ideas together, develop something together, learn something by yourself. This is without the teacher, isn't it? By yourself,
So
you're developing an interest. So as a parent, we should fuel that rather than cut it off.
I hope my kids are not listening to this, because my kid wants to be on Minecraft all the time, and I'm going to go home and he's going to see Dr. Gose, I got to be on Minecraft.
Yeah, I didn't
more
say all the time, all right? So you tell your kids, it's 1 hour a day. That's about it, all right? It's not all the time. Still a
Okay,
balance. Still a balance.
listen, Dr. Go, we've got we could talk about this all night. I want to give you a couple of minutes. Just talk about
Sure.
these. You were telling me earlier about the 10 real world skills.
Sure.
Real world skills. What are these 10 real world skills that you see as inculcating that are important in students? Just quickly run through them, and if you can,
Sure.
just what are these skills about?
So what we did, Harif, 2 years ago is we got together with industry experts, entrepreneurs, academics, and our school leadership. So we came up with 10 things that we felt were, like I said, timeless real world skills that would help kids prepare for whatever industry or career. So they include digital skills. So all of our students from standard 1 until secondary school, with their iPads in the computer lab, they do coding, they do programming, robotics, drones, VR, AR, digital marketing. So our older kids design websites. I mean, I've seen kids as young as 8, 9. They're already doing stop motion capture animation with their iPads. I mean, we are an Apple school, so all of them got iPads. It's amazing. I mean, they are doing green screen stuff. I mean, 8-year-old kids doing green screen filming. They're doing their own production shows as part of their language exercises, drama. Filming their own short movies. So that's digital skills, because fourth industrial revolution stuff. Then we've got global skills. So we want them to engage with the wider world. So we've got pen pals, in different countries. We get them to do the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal challenges every year. Entrepreneur skills is number 3. So they learn about business, financial literacy, how to, like I said earlier, spot consumer psychology stuff so that they understand the market. Lee Ka-shing style, put the dots together. So we have Dragon's Dance pitches. They do all of these pitches to we've brought in real entrepreneurs, seed funders to actually come and hear our students' ideas. We have scientific skills, of course. So for the science geeks, we are not leaving you out. So strong STEM program. They do experiments. Design and innovation is a big thing. So that's number 5. Design innovation skills. So we've got 3D printer labs, maker spaces. So any time of the day, before school, after school, recess time, they can go into the labs, play with Lego, create a project. And these are stuff that is initiated by the kids. We've got culinary labs so that they can actually learn how to cook, but also the goal is to be creative. Then number 6 is performing arts. So that's your area, Harif. In fact, I'm actually thinking of starting a comedians program. So we've got drama, we've got music. So if you're interested, I'm dying to start, because I've heard that in Australia and other parts of the world, they've got, this thing, and stand-up comedy is a big thing now. It's one of the hottest areas in performing arts. So we have got a lot of jokers in our in our schools. I think many of them probably have the potential to do this. So if you want to work with us, let's do it. All right, So performing arts, drama. Yep.
Most of those jokers will end up as politicians. But anyway, carry on.
Okay, that one I don't take responsibility for if they end up in politics. Then moral skills, communication skills, sports and survival. So, all of our children, by the time they graduate in Form 5, all of them must run 5 kilometers without, fainting and dying. All of them must swim 4 laps in the swimming pool. All of them must have at least been exposed to 10 different sports and master 3. All right. And our parents will love this, because look, we want to balance. I mean, so we've got all of the high-tech stuff, the maker spaces, the iPads and all that in our schools. But at the same time, all of our kids have to do outdoor survival. So it's not just the scouts. I want to stress all of these 10 real world skills. Semua also kena, everybody also kena. So from standard 1 to Form 3, we are not giving kids a choice. Why? Because we want to expose them to everything. So all of them have to do camping by Form 3. All right. And so working backwards, in standard 1, they learn how to read maps. Standard 2, they learn Morse code. Standard 5 and standard 6, they learn how to build a fire with the supervision of the adults. Form 2, they learn first aid skills, CPR skills. So when you put all of this stuff together, it's basically like outward bound, like the scouts, So we are saying, look, in Malaysia, real world also is the outdoor world. We live in such a beautiful country. I mean, sayang, you're always indoors all the time, like during the lockdown. It's about time to go out and really love nature, right? So we've got outdoor skills. And lastly, and this is, of course, my area, number 10 is psychological skills. So we often say that nowadays our generation a bit lembek, meaning a little bit soft in terms of not resilient enough, cannot tahan stress, pressure. So we are saying, look, in this VUCA world, you need to be tougher, probably even than mommy and papa. So ironically, they can't be weaker. They need to be more resilient, manage stress, pressure. There's another stat that, and the World Economic Forum also quoted, which is most of our children may need to change industries 3 times in their life, because of the disruption of AI and robots taking over our jobs. So these kids need to be willing to deal with setbacks, losing jobs, whole companies going under, and they don't give up. They get back on their feet. They're tough enough to sort of keep moving on. So those, in a nutshell, Harif, our 10 real world skills. And what's special about this is that it's for all of the kids. So it's not just for the elite athletes or the best students or after school activities. These things are incorporated into our timetable. All right. So they are part of our regular day-to-day lessons. And all of our students get to actually experience all of them. So I think that's sort of our heart and our vision, that the kids are exposed, because schools should enlarge their vision of the world. The real world is broader, not narrow. So that's what we mean when we say we bring the real world into school. It's making our children's world bigger, not smaller.
I'm just listening to you, and I'm trying to read the comments at the same time. Wow, we could have this conversation all night. There. First of all, I just want to acknowledge everyone who has been tuning in and listening and commenting. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all your comments. There have been so many wonderful suggestions, so many wonderful comments. People are just agreeing, disagreeing, and I think what's common about everyone who's actually engaging tonight is that everyone seems to be genuinely concerned about education and what it means and what it brings out of our children and our kids. Because at the end of the day, these people, children, kids, will grow up to be the adults that make or break Malaysia. So, number one, I want to acknowledge everyone who's been commenting here. You know what? If you're watching, I'm just want to know. I'm going to be going back over all these comments and trying to answer them personally as well. And I think Dr. Go will be doing that as well. We're gonna. I would say we're gonna take this out right to write this out on a little video in a while. But before we do, Dr. Go, I just want to give you a couple of moments. It'd be difficult to wrap this all up, but what is your wish? We are in an incredible, never before seen situation with the world history. Well, basically since March in Malaysia, kids' education has been almost on lockdown, e-learning. We're learning about learning again. Some of it's working, some of it's not working. We have no idea how long this will go on. It could go on another year, at best estimates. What does the future hold for education? What does the huge future hold for real schools? And I know it seems like all doom and gloom, but what is your hope for education? Like if you were the education minister, ta-da! What are the three things?
I'm not sure whether I can carry that load, Harif, but I would say that I think all of us in education realize that the disruption caused by COVID is temporary. COVID may last another 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, maybe until, next year, the first quarter, I think is most people's estimates. But look, I don't think anybody thinks that online remote education is going to be forever. So I think I just want to say to everybody, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Your kids are not going to be doing Zoom sessions forever, whether it's university or school. It is a temporary setback. But I would say, we always say, right? Always with challenges and problems come opportunity. So, earlier we said, as parents, we shouldn't shelter our kids too much, right? If not, we spoil them. It's okay to expose them to some of the challenges and the hardships. And these are teachable moments. These are good opportunities to teach the kid to be able to be adaptable. So, being adaptive in terms of coming back to school, and then after that got locked down again, go to remote learning again, and then come back to school, and then remote learning again, then exam get cancelled. So, I know it's not easy, it's difficult, it's stressful for the kid. But I think as a parent, as an educator, I'm not, the education ministry. I can't control these things, but what I can control is talking my kid through the fact that, hey, look, I know it's tough, it's discouraging, it's stressful, nobody anticipated COVID, but this is the real world. This is the VUCA world. This last 2 years, this is exactly what VUCA means. It's not knowing what's going to happen next. And so this is part of your training, managing the anxiety, managing the stress. So Papa and Mommy, I mean, we'll help you. We'll give you ideas. We'll be the shoulder to cry on. We love you all the time. But, we are not going to take away this uncertainty, because part of this is the training. This is the education. So kids having to adapt to remote learning, which, I know it's not ideal. It can be clumsy sometimes, but hey, that's part of, real world living. I mean, many of the companies they are going to be working with in the future are going to be incredibly dependent on remote learning. You're going to have a boss in Japan, another staff in Shanghai, another staff in Holland, and these are the companies of the future, isn't it, Harif? You're having to deal with people all over the place. So if our child, yes, is finding it a bit stressful at kindergarten or a young age to do Zoom conferences, and as a parent, we encourage them, we say, look, I know it's tough, it's a bit frustrating, internet speed is not always there, but to tell them, look, this is the future, this is the VUCA world. So I would say, as parents, and I always end with this, Harif, so I mean, let me say, on one hand, as an educator, all of these are opportunities to me to prepare children for the real world. So I think as parents who want that, and just looking at all of these comments, I think most of the parents are in the same page as both of us, which is, yes, we want a school system, we want a school that exposes our kids to these real world skills. But I think we as parents, we can't be hypocrites. We need to play our part, which is then we need to embrace the VUCA-ness of the world. We need to embrace the fact that our kids need to be pushed sometimes. They need to be exposed to some difficulties. It's okay if they fail. They're okay. They have some disappointments, and this is part of their education to toughen them up, to prepare them for the real world. But I want to balance that with maybe a closing statement, which is to say, at the same time, though, I think the greatest gift parents can give any child. And I look at my own parents. I mean, this is the greatest gift they gave to me. I've always held my father and mother as the models for the kind of parent I want to be. And my wife and I certainly, I mean, we always try to be the best parents. But look, we are not perfect. We make mistakes. Suck it up. It's fine. But one thing we should always remember, which is just love your child. Love your child. Enjoy being with your child. Laugh with your child. Lock down, enjoy the moments you have. I mean, it's a difficult, sucky situation to be in. Nobody wants COVID. But one thing it has given us is more time with our children than none of us have ever experienced before in our life. And I would say, look, when you have a family culture that is full of love, in spite of our imperfections, a family that laughs together and loves together, I tell you, no matter what other mistakes we make as a parent, we may not be the most brilliant people, we may not be the most creative people. I can tell you, giving your child that foundation of unconditional love where they feel accepted. Now, you can't buy confidence like that. And to me, it's the same as a school, by the way. I mean, the teachers may not love the children the same way as the parents, but you have that culture of care, teachers really, caring and loving their students. That to me is the most important component. And you've got that. A lot of the brokenness you see in the world, a lot of, whether it's psychological brokenness or mental health issues or, depression or, kids hating their jobs, a lot of this stuff that you see, that creates all this ugliness in the world. I think a lot of that comes down or goes away when you've got families and schools that create this loving environment for children. So I just want to end on that bright note, that lockdown or whatever it is, go and hug your kids right now. Good night. Love your kids, play with your kids. That's the most important thing.
I think that's actually quite an incredible way to end this session. Dr. Go, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Thank you to everyone who has been watching and commenting. At one point, we had over 750, 800 people watching, commenting. And what a great way to end. So tonight, when I go home and find that my kids have once again stolen my chocolate from my fridge, tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm just going to love them. I'm just going to say, hey, you stole my chocolates again. It's all right. It's all good. Thank you so much.
Share them with me. Tell them, eat them with me the next time, all right?
Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you so much for everyone who's watching. You know what? I got a feeling we could come back and do this again. This is there's so much we have not covered, and there's obviously so much interest out there in the topic of education. Thank you, everyone for watching. Once again, a reminder, Dr. Go, and I invite you as well to come back and try and answer these questions that have been put up here. Everyone seems to really engage in the topic. Thank you so much to all of you who have been watching. We're going to go out on a little clip right now of Real Schools and what's happening over there. I enjoyed watching the clip early on. Doc, we can talk over this, but right at the end of the clip, we'll end the live session. So thank you for watching. This is
Thanks.
Real School. So what's going on here?
Those are some of the 3D printers, So these are some of our IT labs. This is part of the digital skill stuff. So you can see all of the kids have an iPad, but again, we chose the iPad because it's a creative device. They use it for art. They draw on it. These are B-bots, so young kids learn how to do basic computational programming. This is some of them doing their green screen stuff. This is an entrepreneurship pitch. So this is a girl sort of doing a Dragon's Den pitch, a business idea before a panel. Right? The schools are very green. So what I love about it is lots of trees, lots of nature. This is science, all right? So they do experiments. There's a STEM fair every year, where they pitch in ideas, come up with their own inventions, and look, some of these kids are brilliant, right? In fact, this is actually our Osman Awang Hall. So we encourage poetry, the libraries are the most important part of the school for me. So we've spent a lot of money creating these beautiful libraries. This is gymnastics in our Chura school. So one of the 10 different sports that they learn in this particular school, gymnastics, all of our kids swim, all right, So they learn, like I said, by the time they graduate, we expect them to be able to swim 4 laps of the swimming pool without drowning, all right, This is the basketball court. So again, we want them to be a bit outdoor. They don't need to be great in sports, but just to be fit. This is compass reading, the outdoor skills I talked about earlier. All of them do camping, build a fire. All of them do a first aid certification in Form 2. And self-defense skills also, by the way, I designed it because my daughter, I always think about my daughter, that I don't want her to go out there without some self-defense. These are the maker spaces where they're doing things with their hands. So all of them do this, Harif. It's not optional. All of them learn how to sew, including the guys. All of them do artistry. All of them, and by the way, the guys are usually the best at sewing. Interestingly enough, right? Even though they have been pulling, kicking, and screaming at the beginning, all of them do art. There's a beautiful art gallery. This is one of our schools in Cheras. Beautiful art gallery. So they've got artists in residence for them to actually work with. They all have culinary labs. They have to come out with their own recipes. So by the time they go to university, parents don't need to worry about them having the real world skill of cooking for themselves. They all do music, like I said, performing arts. We're very proud of our concert. So we just had a talent show. We had 700 kids do a virtual talent show, Harif. Believe it or not, 2 months ago. Because we couldn't come together. This is so some pictures of how we have made school fun and interesting for our students. So thank you so much again for having me. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Pleasure's been absolutely mine. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Stay safe, stay at home, wash your hands, watch out for all the SOPs once again. And I hope to be back real soon with another live session. Who knows, maybe with Dr. Go as well. And until then, everyone take care wherever you are, and we will see you real soon. Selamat malam, terima kasih, assalamualaikum. Good night, everyone. Take care. Bye.